Well, welcome to our resilience building workshop. So feel free to use the chat box if you want to throughout the workshop, if you have any questions or anything like that. We might have people kind of jumping in and out as we go on as well. So there is a resource in the chat box that you can download and you can use it as we go through the workshop, or you can just fill it out later when you reflect on the workshop as well. Cool. So this topic's really important to me, and I really am passionate about it and excited about this workshop because I think a lot of people go through difficult things. There's lots of horrible things that do happen in the world, a lot of things that we are exposed to. And I think resilience is the key for us to recover from that, to be able to deal with that as well. So I'll get started. We might have a few people coming in and out. Like I said, we had about 50 people register for the workshop. Maybe there was a confusion with the time or something, but we might get some people drop in and out as we go along as well. Cool. So what is resilience? So I just wanted to go over this quickly so we can kind of really get that basis of what we're learning about today and why it might be important to our life. So like I said before, it's the ability to bounce back or recover from adverse experiences. But we're going to go a little bit further with that today and actually talk about how we can kind of grow and become better from the difficult things that happen to us too. So it's, something happening to you that might set you back, that might be challenging physically, mentally, emotionally. But it's our ability, resilience is our ability to grow from that, to be able to heal, move forward, recover, whether it's trauma, difficulties in your job, a relationship breakdown, grief and loss, all of these things. Resilience keeps us going in life. It keeps us jumping over the hurdles, riding the waves, and moving forward. So there's two famous people that I have their picture up on the screen, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about their story and why I chose to talk about them today. So this first man at the top is actually a famous MMA fighter, and he was born in Cameroon. So he lived in poverty, had little formal education growing up. His parents divorced when he was 6 years old, and then he went to live with his aunt. So he grew up not having much opportunities, being very, very poor. At 22, he started boxing. So his father actually had a reputation as a fighter in the town, but not in a good way. So he kind of decided to get into boxing despite his father's reputation, and his family was kind of really reluctant for him to go into that. So at 26, he decided to head to Paris. So he's pursuing his boxing career. But when he arrived in Europe, he actually entered illegally and he got sent to 2 months imprisonment in Spain for illegally crossing the border. So after he finally reached Paris, he had no money, no friends, no place to live. He became homeless on the streets in Paris as well. So from this, coming from almost nothing and having nothing, he had trauma. He had been imprisoned for 2 years. He went out and he found a way to connect with his boxing again. So he found a gym to train at, and he found a coach that was understanding of his situation. And then he continued on. So he said, reflecting on his journey as he became this MMA fighter, when I started, I had nothing. I needed everything. But when you start to earn money, you start collecting things. I want this, I want this, I want that. The purpose is not collecting things, though. The purpose is to do something great. Finish the dream where you started. finish the dream you started. I want to help my family first, of course, but then I want to give opportunity to my children in my country, like me, who have a dream to become a doctor or something. If I reach my dream, it will give me the opportunity to help those in my country who have their own dreams and nothing else to fulfill them. So he wanted his story to get out there to motivate people, similar experience in his country, to be able to have a dream and be able to pursue it, no matter how hard it got. I want to give some opportunity for children like me who dream of this sport and don't have an opportunity like me. The last time I was in Cameroon, I brought a lot of materials for boxing and MMA to open a gym. Now I just brought a big space to start the gym as well. A lot of children now in Cameroon, because of me, they have a dream. They will say, I will be a champion in MMA. I will do boxing like Francis because they saw me when I was young. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any opportunity. And today they see me. They are dreaming. They are thinking that something is possible, even when they are so poor. Something is possible in life. It's not easy. It's so hard, but it's possible. So this is just an example of someone who became really successful, became something great, reached really big dreams, but along the way, massive setbacks, no support, coming from nothing, turning himself into something where people will look up to, where he wants to motivate, other children that have come from experiences like his. So when I actually began studying psychology, the first textbook that I picked up to read as part of my course actually was talking about Angelina Jolie. And the reason that she was in the book was talking about resilience, and it was talking about like how difficult her childhood was, and she had very complicated relationships. So as a teenager, she found it really difficult to connect emotionally with people. She was self-harming. She struggled with insomnia, an eating disorder, and she began using drugs by age 20. She had episodes of depression, and she actually planned twice in her life to commit suicide, once at age 19 and once at age 22. At 24, she had a nervous breakdown and was admitted for 72 hours in a psychiatric ward. 2 years later, she adopted her first child. Jolie found stability later, stating, I knew once I committed to Maddox, I would never be self-destructive again. I was 26 when I became a mother. My entire life changed. Having children saved me and taught me to be in this world differently. She now has 6 children. 3 of them are adopted from orphanages. And this is another example where she drew on resilience, coming from mentally struggling in life, not even, valuing herself or feeling any worth or purpose, to doing something really great as well. And again, wanting to give back to children who were, misfortunate as well. So this is, I guess, the whole point of what we're talking about today, is that regardless of what happens to you, what you're going through, what's gone on in your life, the cards that you were served, your family history, the trauma that you've experienced, is that you can become great. You can grow from this. You can become an amazing person, no matter what you've been through, as well. So that's why this is important. It's not letting our adversities or our experiences, trauma, difficulties, challenges hold us back. We don't give up when it gets difficult. And we're not limiting ourselves of what we can achieve based on our situation. Again, these people had very little opportunity, very little support, and they overcome that to become something great. So it's not saying that I'm never going to be the best, or I'm never going to be successful, or I'm never going to achieve anything in my life because I was unlucky or I had all these difficult things happen to me. It's about becoming more stronger, developing skills, being adaptable from our past experiences that help us move forward. So, and again, we're believing that there is good in ourselves, in the world, and other people, and we're contributing to the world. We're giving back, we're paying it forward so that everyone's safe and connected and successful. And that's something that both these people did, is that they became something themselves, and then they went straight to wanting to give it back, adopting children, being motivated to, empower children that had the same experiences of them as well, becoming someone that people are going to look up to. Does anyone have any questions around like what resilience is or why it might be important? I'll keep moving forward.
Oh, one question, Sarah. Hi.
Hello.
Like obviously like that, like it's so like how does one make the switch from feeling like they're alone in the world and like that they're not able to get above the line to you know seeing that they've got value in the world?
Yes, that is the million-dollar question of today, and I'm glad that you asked, because the whole purpose of what I wanted this workshop to be about is the how and what you actually do. And I think that there's a lot of people that go through these horrible experiences. Some of them end up serial killers in jail or addicted to drugs, and other people end up famous for doing something amazing. So, and the key there is resilience. That put those people on the path despite having the same experience. So today's going to be all about how, like, the breakdown of the steps of like what is resilient people doing, how can we practice that in our own lives, because obviously when you have major life experiences, it might be you lose someone, it might be a massive trauma or something, life shattering happens to you, it's going to affect you and it's going to knock you off your feet. But at the same time, this workshop's about rebuilding and about practicing those skills of what do we actually do to become resilient humans. And that's important because the world is a hard place and difficult things are happening to us, to our family, all around us in the world as well. So that's a really good question, but the answer is really long. So we're going to jump in and start talking about some of these skills and practices that we can do to become a resilient person. So the very first thing that I wanted to start with was acceptance. And this is important because acceptance is like the opposite of avoidance. And sometimes when something's happening to us, happening in our life, avoidance might be something that we tend to go to, and that might look resilient because you're shutting it out, or you seem okay, or you're getting along with, your day-to-day tasks or responsibilities. But at the same time, if we haven't properly accepted what has happened to us and be prepared to deal with that, then at some point it's going to open up, or we're going to explode, or we haven't properly processed what's gone on in order to have the strength to move forward as well. So something that is important here, and acceptance doesn't happen straight away, is that we do need to practice being aware and open and accepting of the things that happen in our life, of what we have gone through, of our stories. We're not denying it, we're not blocking it out in order to be resilient. We're facing it and we're accepting that this thing happened to us, and this is something that we have to deal with and we can learn from as well. Is everyone kind of making sense of like why acceptance might be important first step if we need to be resilient? Yeah, cool. The next thing I want to talk about is holding on versus letting go. So it's really easy, and I definitely have been guilty of this, when there is adverse experiences in our life, our brain is really good at, we have what's called heuristics, which are like mental shortcuts where we jump to a conclusion, we take this, that, and that, and without really analyzing it properly, we just say, this is what it is. And we can come up with some really negative thoughts. We can kind of develop a little bit of victim mentality, like, why am I so unlucky? Everyone will hurt me because one person hurt me. Or thinking that that was unfair. All these people got these lovely, great childhoods, but why did I have to go through all of that? Or I'm missing this in my life and all those other people have it, but if I had that, then I would be better, or something like that. So sometimes we have to catch ourselves with what beliefs or mental shortcuts did we make based on things that have happened to us. Are we in that negative thought process around life being unfair? Things would be different. We're bargaining, we're rationalizing things in a way that's not healthy or helpful for us. So something that we can ask ourselves here is the thought or the belief, what purpose is that serving my life? Because the emotions that our thoughts bring up, our feelings come from the way that we think about things. And if our thoughts are in that place where we're a victim, or the world's a bad place, or we're hating ourselves, or we're hating other people, then we're going to be living those emotions as well. So sometimes naturally after something happens, we can form these negative thoughts or beliefs, and that's okay. But it's thinking about, what purpose is that serving my life? Is this the way that I want to feel? Is this the way that I really want to think about myself or everyone else? Or is this something that I need to let go of? Sometimes these thoughts are there to protect us or help keep us safe. If we've been abused, we form these thoughts around people being unsafe so that people can't hurt us again. But if you've shut off all the chances of a loving relationship in your life, or friends or family that aren't going to hurt you, then that's not really helping you move forward. It's not really protecting you. It's causing more damage. So thinking about, what am I thinking and believing based on my experiences? And is this something that's healthy and serving purpose to my life that I want to hold on to? Or is this something that I need to try and learn to let go of as well? And again, reframing negative thoughts. So in your resources, it has some prompts around this. The part that says instead of I will remember is a way that we can journal to change our thoughts. So like the example I mentioned before, so instead of believing people are unsafe or everyone's going to hurt me, I will remember that they are safe people in the world, or I am capable of building trust again, as an example. So we're holding on to a thought that is actually going to serve purpose to our life and move us forward, rather than keep us stuck in the adverse experience, because resilience is about bouncing back and moving forward. Our thoughts need to be in that process for it to happen as well. I put this circles like graph on the side, and it's something that I think about quite a lot, actually, because we often have day-to-day stresses and anxieties, things that have happened to us or things that might happen to us that we spend lots of time worrying about. In the middle, smallest circle is things that we can actually control. This is worth us worrying about because we can do something about it. So for an example, if you were worried about your kids' sleep, that might be something you have some control over, because you can help them with strategies or sit with them or talk to them about it as well. So those things that we are spending lots of time worrying about, that are on our mind, we need to think about, is this something that I actually have control over? Something that I have any kind of control in my life? Can I do anything about it? Outside of what we can actually control, which is very little, we have our influence. So this might be a situation with another person, maybe like arguing with your partner. You can have some influence because you can choose how you act and how you show up, but then at the same time, you can't control how they show up and how they act. So you can have some influence over the situation, but you can't necessarily control it or control the outcome. Outside of this is no control and no influence, which is where most of the world is. Most of our problems are. So just thinking about what we need to let go of, and what we are thinking about and stressing about, bringing it back to, is this something that I can control, that I need to take actions or take steps, which sometimes is a very small portion of our problems? Is this something that I can have some influence over? Maybe I can communicate about it or work with someone about it or get some help. Or is this something that I have no control and no influence? And if it fits on that outside box where we cannot do anything about it, it might be a big world problem or something like that. That is something that we would let go of. If you have no control, no influence over the problem, you want to use your mental capacity, your resources to focus on things that you can control and you can influence. Does that make sense? So it's a kind of little sidestep to what we're talking about with resilience, but at the same time, I thought it was relevant because if we're recovering from a really serious thing that had happened to us or a really, traumatic experience, if it's something that you can't control or influence that this thing happened to you, but what you can control and can influence is your present, how things are for you now, your day-to-day practices, how you take care of yourself, all of those things that you can control or can have influence over is where you should bring yourself back to. Any questions or reflections on that one? I will keep moving along. Cool. So the next part that I want to talk about is about healing. So obviously this is going to have a massive influence when we are talking about resilience, because a lot of the things that we need resilience for to get over, we need to heal from. So like how I started at the very start, acceptance is the first kind of step of resilience. We have to face facts that this thing happened to us or that we're dealing with this thing in order to be resilient. Avoidance is not resilience. So that means that we do have to take time to heal. Healing could probably be its own workshop all on its own, because it looks different for everyone. And again, that's another kind of big process, but I wanted to mention it in the resilience because to be able to bounce back and to move forward, which is what we're talking about today, we need to have somewhat healed from our experiences that have rattled us in the first place. So I won't go like fully into this today, but this is something that you kind of need to think about is like, what does healing mean for me? It might be thinking about what your cultural practices are, or if you're someone that likes to deal with things internally, or if you would like to seek support from someone else. Do you need to have therapy for the experiences that you have been through? All of those kind of things. This is where, diet and exercise and having those hobbies and all of those things can come into place. It might be about art therapy or whatever it is that you need to do. We need to think about, okay, I've had this thing that's happened. I need to heal from it. What is healing going to look like for me? What feels good for me and what works for me as well? Something else that I wanted to mention was about breaking the cycle. So again, if we went back to those famous people that we talked about at the start, what they came from and what they're delivering is really different. What their child experiences were and how they're parenting is really different. And something that happens in resilience for people who become resilient after adverse childhood experiences is that they've broken the cycle. So, like I said before, sometimes people can have the exact same experience. Someone ends up, a murderer in jail or addicted to drugs, and another person becomes something really great that everyone looks up to. We are either becoming resilient and breaking the cycle, or we're repeating the cycle. There's a really good picture that I've seen on Facebook, and it has like the grandmother at the back, and she's saying all of these critical, horrible, nasty things to her daughter. and then it's like it's a cartoon, and the tongue of the grandmother goes to the brain of the daughter, and then it kind of stops there, and the daughter is saying to her daughter, like, oh, like positive things like, I love you, you're doing great, blah blah blah. So this person has got, like, what they've come from is critical, you know, difficult childhood experiences where they haven't been accepted, or they haven't been made to feel safe or secure, but they've gone out into the world and they've healed, and they've done something, for themselves to relearn, so that when they pass on their parenting to the next generation, it looks different to what they've came from. And this is something, again, could be a whole other workshop, but it's important to recognize, like, what were my experiences and what have I learned? And there might be family traditions or parts of parenting you received that you do want to pass on, that were great for you, but there might be some where it wasn't. Again, our parents were people who had their own diverse experiences, who may have had their own trauma, healed or not healed. And again, we can look up to some of the things that they've shown us and done, but sometimes we need to break that cycle, especially if you come from a background of abuse or neglect, or something that, caused you psychological harm as a child. That's not something that we want to go and naturally do. And that can happen. We see cycles of generational abuse, patterns in the jails where the grandfather's in jail, and then his son, and then his son, as well. So I think naturally that cycle can just continue unless somebody stops it. And that's a lot of work for that person, because they're giving something that they never got. They're doing it on their own because they don't have the support behind them as well. So again, if you have a critical parent, that might result in a child being insecure. But if that child was to break that pattern and put a stop to that, they become a secure, loving parent from healing their trauma and relearning, then they're raising a secure, confident child. So this is something, again, we need to think about when we're being resilient and when we're becoming the best version of ourselves. What's things we want to pay forward, and what things stop at you? What are you breaking the cycle for? It could be alcoholism. It could be, anything that has kind of gone on in your family, in your history, your experiences, that stops with you because you want to do better for your kids, for yourself, and make that world a better place, too. But again, it takes work, because you have to learn, okay, if I'm not going to be this critical parent, how can I be a secure, loving parent? How can I be secure and loving to myself so that I can show up for my kids in that way as well? So relearning is a process, and sometimes it's about watching videos about how to do that thing, or journaling about it, or looking for role models and things like that too. So you're not expected, if you didn't receive something, to just know how to do it. But if you want to stop it, you can, and you can relearn, retrain your brain, of what we're going to offer instead. Identity, I think, is really important in resilience as well, because if we know who we are, then we can draw on strengths too. In the resource, there is a little bit on the bottom of the second page that says, what makes me me? And it talks about, your culture, your beliefs, your spirituality, your history, your personality, your values, your traits. But this is thinking about, like, what do I like and what don't I like? What is special and unique about me? What is important to me? And if we are connected with our values, and with being ourselves and being that authentic, true version of ourselves, we're going to be happier, as well. And we can draw on these strengths from our culture or from the people around us, to be able to become that person and to be able to be a resilient person as well. Sometimes when you are going through trauma, we can shut ourselves off from who we really are because we're in survival mode. When you are living with somebody who is abusive, you don't have the opportunity to say what you like and say what you don't like because the whole thing revolves around them. You're in survival mode on what's going to settle them or what's going to avoid the abuse and things like that. So we can easily, if we go through traumas and difficult experiences or big grief and losses in our life, lose touch with our identity of who we are as a person and what makes us us. And if we're becoming a strong, resilient person that's going to overcome the things that are happening to us, the things that go on in the world, then we need to know who we are and be that strong person and connected with this is me as well. And with that comes your self-worth. Where you are able to expect more of yourself and protect yourself as well. To know that you are important, to feel content and secure with who you are, despite what you might have been told or despite what you might have been through. So really being yourself, becoming your own person and having that self-worth and connection to your identity and who you are is essential in becoming resilient as well. Is there any questions or reflections on that so far? I'll keep going. Cool. So these are some more things that we can do as we're building resilience. And something that I wanted to mention is this workshop is about building resilience, and it's not something that you become overnight. And even when you are a resilient person, it's not something that you are all the time as well, if that makes sense. Sometimes we have these little mental slips or these little doubts, or we get triggered. When you've lived abuse, there's things that come up and that trigger you, that bring up those negative self-beliefs or those critical thoughts as well. So it's not being perfect and being happy all the time. It's about building skills to cope and to keep going and to keep moving forward. As well. So I think that's something that's really important with this, is these are ideas and skills that we can start to practice and start to bring into our lives to be the best version of ourselves, but don't have that expectation that no matter what big thing happens in your life, that you're never going to feel sad ever again, or you're never going to have a bad day ever again, because grieving and overcoming trauma and healing is messy, and it's also not linear. So we bounce backwards and forwards to different stages as well. So something that we need to be is open to feel what we feel, and open to being sad, to being angry, to having those thoughts where the world's not a just place, and to go through changes and to be flexible. And sometimes we become a little bit different of a person after we've been through these things as well. So at the start, I mentioned, positive growth post-trauma. It's not just about existing after something has happened to you. It's about learning and growing and, being yourself and expanding yourself to keep going, to keep moving forward, to not just survive, but to be successful and be something that you're proud of, to be something that's motivating, and to be at that point where you start giving back to the community or to people that have had similar experiences to you as well. Creating a support network. So this is really important because people aren't designed to do things on their own. A lot of our psychology is the same as what it was in caveman days in terms of how we deal with stress, and we're a pack animal. So your support network is something that you should really reflect on regularly as well, because sometimes we outgrow our friends, or we might have people around us, but we maybe are giving to them, but not necessarily getting what we need out of our support network as well. In the resource is just a couple, and again, our support network should be bigger than this. But thinking about the first one is people that I can ask for help. So this might be that your car's broken down or that you need to vent about something that's happened. Who is someone that you can ring and be like, this has happened, I need you to come and save me here, and that you have people in your corner that are going to show up for you that will help you. The next one is people that motivate you. Often we can kind of become who we're hanging around. So if you're hanging around with people that are constantly in a negative mind space, that's constantly struggling, that aren't really on the same page of like goals and things like that where you want to be, again, that's something that could kind of hold you back and impact your resilience. So if you have people where you're like, I love that person, they're so great because they're going to the gym every day and that's something that I really want to do, or they're always just being healthy or believing in themselves or caring for other people or doing whatever it is, where you're like, that person is awesome and I want to be like that person. You should have people around you that motivate you. And again, sometimes this could be like someone's books that you like to read or a podcast you like to listen to. Sometimes your support network isn't there in the flesh and blood. It's people that you kind of, the material you expose yourself to, your social media, your reading, what you're listening to while you're driving, all of these things is kind of a little bit like your support network as well, because it's in your brain, it's something that you're absorbing and it's going to impact the way that you feel. So definitely having people that motivate you, a coach, someone that you want to be like, is a great person to have in your corner to think about. These are people that I'm going to move up and level up in life with, not that are holding me back. And sometimes this can happen, when you're young and you're in your kind of partying phase, and then you go and get a family, but then there's friends around you who just want to party and they're not really about your family, and your focus in life and your values have changed to your family. Sometimes we can separate a little bit, and doesn't mean those friends were bad people, but like I said, you kind of just outgrow them as well. So definitely people that motivate you, that you want to be like, are people you should have in your support network. And the last one I put is people that you enjoy spending time with. Something to kind of ask yourself, like when you're looking at your support network, is when you leave those people, how do you feel about yourself? And what kind of mood are you in? Sometimes we might have a friend that's a little bit jealous of us, and so they tend to put us down, or someone that's a little bit maybe like body image obsessed or something like that. And when we leave, we start kind of thinking that and taking that on as well because of their own issue. And they're not trying to do something bad to us or hurt us, but they impact the way that we feel. So thinking about like when you're with someone and you leave that space of being with them, how did you end up kind of feeling about yourself? How did they leave you feeling? Because we want to surround ourselves with friends, with our supports, even with our family, that leave us feeling good about ourselves, not putting us down. So it's just something to consider. Resilient people and becoming resilient, it's a lot of work, and it's not something that you have to do with on your own. On the hard days, you need to have people that you can rely on. You need to have help when you need it, and people that are making you feel good about yourself and motivated and supported. Sometimes in order to be resilient and to get over things that have happened, we need to cut people off or limit our time or put some serious boundaries in place as well. And again, that is those people's own issues, but it may be influencing us or affecting us, where we need to step up to protect ourselves too. Service to others. This is something really cool about the people we were talking about at the start of the workshop, is that they pay it forward. They want to motivate other people. They go back to their communities and give back to kids who had limited opportunities. They feel good about motivating people that they're not stuck in their problems and that they can dream big and they can achieve. And it's not easy, but you can do it as well. So when you get to the point where you've worked on yourself and you're feeling confident and you're achieving these goals, paying it back to the community and to others and serving, vulnerable people is something that really levels you up as well. So just something to think about is, how can I, and again, you're not kind of violating your own needs to just do everything for other people so that you're burnt out. It's just about, giving back to others, motivating others, so that as a world we're connected, and as a world we're resilient and can rely on each other too. Um, and another thing I added in there was finding pleasure. So this is something where you can have a break, something that you look forward to, something that brings joy and fulfillment in your life. Art, music, sports, hobbies, whatever it is. So that as you're going through all these difficult things, doing hard work to become resilient, to heal, you have that thing where you can like look forward to your journey along the way, that life is supposed to be enjoyable. And yes, difficult, hard things do happen to us, but at the same time, there's a lot of really amazing things to take part of as well. So this might be, you know, booking a movie date, or going to a show, or having that hobby that's your thing that you go to that makes you happy, as well. So definitely having those pleasurable activities in your life, whatever that might be. Again, part of your identity, part of who you are, is that you love these things, and that you're connected with the things that you love, so that life's pleasurable and life's enjoyable. Because sometimes after we go through these difficult experiences, life can seem unbearable, as well. So we're kind of balancing that out with, yes, I will work on myself. Yes, I will go over these challenges. Yes, I will be pushing myself to do better. But at the same time, I'm going to be having fun along the way, to take breaks and to do things that I need to for myself as well. Practicing gratitude. This is something, again, really important, because instead of, like we talked about, those limiting beliefs that everyone in the world's going to hurt me, or that I'm very misfortunate, or that I'm a victim and I'm always going to be a victim, we're teaching our brains to look for things that have gone right and that are going well too. So you're kind of changing your automatic thoughts that we have, that are going to impact our feelings and then how we act, by practicing gratitude. And this is something when you have those moments where things feel like too much to bear, or you're too overwhelmed thinking about, okay, what am I grateful for? Your brain starts looking for things that you do have, and sometimes those things can help you cope. For example, something that you might be grateful for is your dog. So on a day that you feel really sad, like everything's bad or the world's out to get you can find comfort in having your dog there with you as well. So being grateful for your family, for your hobbies, for a home to live in, for food and water, is that I do have things in my life, and no matter how much my brain is just showing me or just telling me that everything's so hard right now, and maybe a lot of things are, or a lot of things are really painful, there is these things that I can go to, in order to connect, and to have, so that you feel like you're not alone as well. Again, those positive contents in terms of like what we listen to and what we read and what we watch, we want to have things that show us that the world is a good place as well, that can kind of motivate us. Sometimes we enjoy watching more serious shows, or more kind of negative shows as well, and they can be entertaining, and it's not wrong to watch those things. But if you're not in a good headspace, sometimes that can kind of be confirming, you know, that there's violence everywhere or things like that, when we could be spending that time watching something that's going to comfort us, not trigger us, or motivate us or educate us, as well. Allowing time to build the skills is really important. Like I said, you're not resilient all the time. And this is about building resilience, not just magically waking up tomorrow being the perfect resilient person. I have no doubt that those people we talked about have their down days, have their days where they feel like giving up, or they did give up. And that's natural and that's normal, and it's part of acceptance and part of feeling our feelings as well. But being able to build up our skills to reset and refresh as many times as we need to. We have a down day, we have those little slips or whatever it is, we start again, and you start again as many times as you need to. And that's a big thing in resilience. It's little steps that keep you moving forward, not, oh, I tried, but it didn't work, so I give up. That's not what resilience is about. It's about you keep going. No matter what challenge it is, no matter how hard it is, you just keep moving forward. And remembering that it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to think, I'm a resilient person, I can deal with everything on my own. Part of being resilient is drawing on your resources, being connected, and knowing when you need to ask for help and you need to lean on people as well. So you're building up around you hobbies, people, motivation, positive content, self-care practices, healing practices. These are the things that hold us up, that hold us to become resilient. We're not avoiding, we're not shutting out, we're not becoming, emotionally disconnected. And that's how we're resilient, because we don't feel anything. We're being human, we're feeling, but we're acknowledging that, we're accepting that, and we keep going despite of it as well. So here's some little take-home messages. Is focus on resilience, not avoidance. So I think that's really important. We're accepting, we're being human, we're feeling our feelings, we're not just locking everything away as well. We're practicing these strategies daily. So it might be that you start a gratitude journal. It might be that you start thinking about what thoughts do you need to start reframing. It might be thinking about what your cycle and kind of inner child is at in terms of your parenting that you received, and how you might want to relearn some things that you've been taught. So it's just, writing some things down, having that acceptance and awareness, start reflecting, noticing what you like and what you don't like, and what kind of brings you joy in doing those things. It's all these little kind of steps and practices that we're talking about that come together like a puzzle piece that makes us resilient. It's not one thing, it's not one trick, it's all these little daily practices consistently, keep trying. And not having that expectation that you're going to be perfect as well. Yes, I can send out. So at the top of the chat is the resources, which you can download. I can send out the slides. Again, I don't know how the recording works and if the file will be too big to email out, but I can give it a go. I might be able to post it on our Facebook page or something like that, but I will work on, sorry, I'm not the best with technology, but I'll try and get the recording out there, maybe as a YouTube link or something like that as well. But yeah, thank you, Rose. I'll call your email address is that too. Awesome. And connecting with support. So again, we're not saying I have to deal with this all on my own and I'm resilient because I just shut everything out and it doesn't matter what happened to me, it won't affect me and I'll just go. Part of being resilient is being realistic that we are humans, we need help, we rely on each other, we have bad days, and we have acceptance, we make space and we make room for that, but we keep up our coping strategies so that we don't crumble and get stuck there. It's okay to crumble, but we don't stay stuck. We find a way to help ourselves to relieve the trauma, relieve the emotions, and keep building ourselves back up again, like those amazing people that we talked about as well. Cool. So just quickly wanted to talk about our services, because this is in line again with getting support and getting help and then not being alone on your journey too. There is a few ways that you can access our services for free. So we have psychologists and counselors, we have dietitian and nutritionists, and we have exercise physio and PTs. So I guess the idea of thoughtful movement services is that holistic well-being where you're working on your mental health and your physical health together, because our body is all connected. We do have some more workshops coming up in February and March as well, so look out for those on our Facebook page. search Thoughtful Movement and follow us, and then you can kind of be up to date with our events. Most of our events are going up on Eventbrite as well, which I think you can kind of follow us on there so you get notified if we put a new event up too. So one way that you can access our services for free is with a mental health care plan. I know some people joining the workshop were from the US and the UK, but if you are in Australia with us, you can go to your GP and get a mental health care plan to do sessions with a psychologist. You can also get a healthcare plan to do sessions with a dietitian and an exercise physio. So we have our office space in Aspley where you're able to come in and use these services for free. We don't have any gap fees like a lot of services do. 100% bulk billed, get your healthcare plan, you can do your sessions for free. Another way that you can access our services for free is if you are an NDIS participant, you can use your NDIS funding for all of our services as well. We also have our EAP services. So if you are joining the workshop because you're already a member, well, your workplace is a member with us, and we are your EAP provider, call us, book in to do your sessions. Depending on where you work, you usually get 3 to 5 sessions for free, and you have a discounted rate to continue the sessions if you want to as well. If your workplace is not a member with our EAP services, let them know about us and what we offer. We have heaps of employee benefits where we can kind of help the workplace culture and work around those kind of things as well. So suggest it to your employer if they're interested. We're happy to come out, meet with them. We have EAP contracts all over Australia, and it's a space that we really enjoy working in as well. So the EAP is something where employees can access our services based on their business or employer having a membership with us. NDIS covers our services as well as your mental health care plans. We do offer private sessions as well if you don't fit into one of these things. So send us an email or get in contact with us. Again, we can do those one-on-one sessions either online or in person to help you really reach your goals, to put these practices into place, healing with your trauma, anything like that. We have a team of specialists who are able to help you as well. So yeah, definitely, this is what we do. This is who we are. Come to our workshops and learn more about us, and feel free to connect with our services as well. Thank you, Boo, and thanks for coming again. I really enjoy having you in our workshops. Cool. So that's the end of me talking, but I just wanted to open it up to you guys. If you had any questions or any reflections from the workshop, feel free to jump in either on the chat or unmute yourself and ask as well. I think everyone's okay. Cool. Well, I appreciate you guys coming. I will stop the recording.